Okay, so we're now officially recording. I'll take a moment to introduce myself, and then I will allow my co-presenters here to introduce themselves as well. So my name is Meier. I am the Program Director for Career Services in the School of Public Health and at the University Career Center. And I'll pass it over to my colleague, Linda.
Good afternoon. I'm Linda LeNoir. I'm an Assistant Director in the University Career Center, and I'm also a liaison to the Alumni Association and a lot of other things. But most importantly, the liaison to the Alumni Association. Pamela?
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all doing well on one of the warm days of the week. I'm Pamela Allen. I work in the University Career Center. I'm a program director here and liaison to multi-ethnic student groups and programs.
And with that, we'll go ahead and jump in. Hoping this lets me go ahead. So we're going to start with Linda LeNoir. She will be going over resumes, just the basics, everything you need to know to get started and really leverage all the potential there. I will then take over for some kind of jump-starting your job search, so the basics, getting started, and how to really make that effective. And then Pamela Allen will take on the Netiquette piece. So there will be some breaks and some opportunity at the end as well to ask questions. But if you have questions, don't want to forget them as you go along, you can feel free to pop them into the chat. And that's how we will be engaging for this question section of the presentation. So with that, I'm going to jump into resumes portion of the presentation. Linda.
Okay, well, once again, welcome. And we're covering a whole lot of information in a very short period of time. And so we hope that we are being able to give you, as Lauren said, the basics. So resumes at a glance, I'm going to talk a little bit about, give you the overview of a resume, the anatomy of one, and tell you a little bit about what we call a master resume. So what is a resume? Overall, resume is going to be one page, ideally one page. It's going to be error-free, concise, and attractive. It's going to outline all that you are trying to present to the employer, okay? You write the resume thinking about who is going to read this resume, okay? So you want to make sure that you are addressing the employer in the information that you provide. You want to personalize it to be able to inform the employer or the reader about your strengths, your interests, as well as to capitalize on what your capabilities are in that particular job search. So in essence, you should think in terms of tailoring or customizing the resume for the various kinds of positions you're applying to, sometimes to a particular position, but very often you can take that particular position and broaden it a little bit so it can be used in several different instances. We definitely use action verbs because you're not sitting still when you are learning, hopefully. And so we talk about action verbs and we talk about bulleted points. In other words, we want to be sure that when the reader is looking at that, they're able to quickly draw their eye to what it is that you are trying to make important to their reading. Keep away from all personal pronouns at all times, and also hold off on putting your references on the one pager. Instead, you're going to have your references on a separate sheet of paper. So what do you have on there? A lot of great information, and we're putting it down here because when you finish your resume, you need to go back and make sure. I've had alumni before, as well as students, who after they've made all of their changes, they go back and they've dropped their name, okay? So you want to be sure that you have your contact information on there. You can include your LinkedIn URL. The other is that I have had some people who say, well, do I have to put in my full mailing address? At this point, there are those people who just put in the city and state just for security purposes. You should have some kind of an objective, or in this day and time, sometimes it's a skills section, but something that's going to identify what will the reader find on this particular resume? This is a perfect time to talk about your education, to talk about your experience, to talk about the things that you did outside of the job or outside of the classroom. And of course, to highlight the skills that you will bring to this particular organization, both soft skills as well as technical skills that are relevant to the particular position. So let's look at what that contact information might look like. The contact information is at the very top of this, and it's going to be, your name should be the largest piece that they will see, and that's going to be the highlight, okay? And if you can see here, by streaming it all across on one line, that's going to give you more space to be able to use that one pager on, all right? So there's your contact information and how it might look. All right, when you get to the objective or the skills section, this is where what you're trying to do is to let them know, I'm looking for an internship, or I'm looking for a full-time position, whatever it is that you're looking for. And then what is the field? What is the industry? What are the skills that you want to use? The objective is used to help you, first of all, to clarify what it is that you would like to put into your resume. But it also helps the reader to say, this person is addressing the kinds of skills that I would like to be looking at as I try to recruit on this particular position. Let's talk a little bit about that objective, okay? It is customized it's customized so that, first of all, as I said, you can target what you're going to say. You can focus on what class did I take that I gained some skills out of. You'll have on there your position title and what you've learned, your skills, your interest, the industry, and the employer, or any combination of the above. So it could be that you're just looking for a position. I think the next screen will show this. For instance, it could be, I'm looking to be an implementation consultant. And that would just be the only thing you put there as your objective. You could throw in that you want to use certain skills, or that you want to work with, this is really customizing it, you want to work with a particular organization, such as the Fast Enterprise LLC. All right. Another one, public relations associate. Once again, these are the skills you're trying to use, and this is an industry that you would like to get into. So as you can see, if you spend the time to think about your objective, it really is going to help you to then think hard about what are the skills that I'm going to bring to this organization? What is this industry? This is the reason why it's not really impressive to say, oh, I sent out 40 resumes yesterday. Better to have 4 that are targeted than 40 that are just kind of willy-nilly all over the place. Take the time to focus what it is that you would like for the reader to get out of it, as much as what you put into that. After the objective, you are going to talk about your education, and you will have in there that your Bachelor of Arts. We do suggest that you do spell out Bachelor of Arts at the BA, not BA, but Bachelor of Arts in the field, the University of Maryland. If you have a minor, and you can see on there that you can include a lot of other information, such as honors that you might have had, as well as if you've had a chance to study abroad. Well, other relevant experience could be looking at, some students like to say, well, I really didn't work, but I did help out with this volunteer work over at St. Matthew's Youth Group. Well, think about that. Does that have something to do with what it is that you are applying to? And so you can include that information as far as opportunities where you were a volunteer. You can also include exact work experience, but once again, you're always looking at what is the position title, who is the employer, and what is the city and state where you work. And then on the right-hand side is where you're going to line up throughout the resume the various kinds of dates that might be, accurate for what you did, what your work was. Using bullets, and you can see there, you have very specific managed, created, designed, collaborated, organized. Those are the action verbs that you want the employer to really focus in on, as they're reading your resume. It just shows that you're an active person. A lot of times students tend to not put in their class projects, and yet that's a big part of who you are and what you're doing here in higher education. At some point, you had a class where either you independently were responsible for a project or you worked as a member of a team. And that particular project might have been a 5-page, a 10-page, it might have had a presentation. What was your role? So I always recommend that even if you are a new graduate or somebody who graduated like even 2 years ago, if you had a relevant class project, go ahead and write that information out so that you can always come back to it and it's fresh in your mind. So take the time to think about where you have been spending your time as a student. You have done a lot of projects. Some of you might have had internships, okay? And those internships may have been paid or unpaid, credit or no credit. You may have volunteered someplace one day. It could have been just a one-day marathon that you helped them to organize and to be a part of. If you are in intramurals or did some athletics, or if you were a member or even a leader within a student organization. And of course, research. If you were working with someone, one of your faculty members in a particular course, what did you do? We do want to make a note that with the fact of COVID over the last couple of years, you might have been selected for an internship and it may have been canceled on you due to COVID. It's okay to put on there that this opportunity was there, that you went through the process and you were selected. And so it just shows them how competitive you are with the experience that you can bring to their organization. With experiences, you really are trying to go back to that objective where you're thinking about some keywords that are helping you to focus. If you said that you had certain skills, say communication, you want to be able to say, well, where did that come from? Well, tagcrowd.com is a really terrific source for you to, for instance, take a job description and that you see an actual job description, copy that job description, paste it into, there's a blank box in TagCrowd, place it there, and then there's a little bar that says visualize. Click visualize, and a whole crowd or cloud will appear where the words are very large if they were most meaningful and smaller if they were not as meaningful. This particular exercise can help you to see, well, I'm calling the fact that I work with students, but here it looks like I should be using the word clients or vice versa. So it helps you to hopefully speak the language of the organization to whom you're applying so they can understand that you know how to translate your work experience. TagCrowd is without any doubt one of the best ways for you to go about doing things. So do use the TagCrowd. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, use those strong action verbs. Try to get rid of those vague ones like helped or assisted, and try to group your experiences. So sometimes you might even have the relevant experiences or related experiences are the ones that really fit right there to that very top part, that career objective. And then the others can be other experiences that you've had. We don't like for you to include high school after sophomore year. And so all of you have now graduated or will be graduating. So sophomore year is gone, high school is gone. Please do not put that on. Do not waste your reading time or your space on your resume with that kind of filler. Better to go back and look at the volunteer experiences or the experiences in your classroom. You're still going to aim to keep it to one page, but you're going to be very specific, very targeted. In mind. And as you can see here, this is what SHIP is talking about. That action verb, highlighting your achievements, including tailored statements, and when possible, provide quantitative data that perhaps you did a study that the results showed that 98% of the participants were whatever. Or it could be that you were preparing a course for somebody and you had the opportunity to interact with 21 young adults between the ages of 21 and 32. So anytime you can put a number in, it really helps the reader to really get a sense of what it is that you did. How many people were you working with? What were the results of what you've done? Keep SHIP in mind, because SHIP is going to help you to really drive that information. So let's look and see what I mean by that. So which one of these is more important, more impressive? You could have something just like this, all right, which says you advise the whole council. But what about if instead you said this? Here you have the numbers, and here you're using the action verbs, but you're giving more information. You're giving how much money you did. You're talking about how many resumes. And do note that we spelled out the word 8 and the word 2, because any number that is a single digit should be spelled out, okay? So which one is more impressive? I think you'd agree that the second one is, right? I hope, okay. So I was looking at an article in The Muse, and that's themuse.org, that puts out a lot of terrific career job search information. And they took one resume bullet and showed how you can really spin it according to what you're trying to do. So I'll let you do the reading. And so the main bullet was, as you can see, develop a framework for globalization initiative to improve the sharing of institutional knowledge. So if you want to show the impact that this had, this is how you might rewrite that sentence and develop it a little bit more. Okay, now that's going to show impact. Let's see what happens if we take it to the next. What about teamwork? If the position you're applying to says that you're going to be working with a team of people, here is where you want to say, I worked with a team. Now, I did just tell you to take single digits and spell them out. You will see that some people don't do that. In the Muse, they did not, but the same thing still happens here. You work with a team of 4 people to get to your bottom line. Or if you want to be able to show that you're an effective communicator, because this is a position that involves that. Here again is a way that you can talk about how you were able to communicate information among a group of people. Okay, now what about rescinded job offers? And like I said, during COVID, many people got rescinded, their positions were rescinded. And some people actually lost their jobs, and you might have been one of them, especially for you alumni who might have been out for a couple of years and suddenly you lost your job. So you can put on there that your position was canceled due to COVID budget cuts, all right? So it's not only that you were selected for the position, but for those of you who lost your jobs during this time, put that in there to be able to say, I was working with them for a period of time, but then due to COVID, there was a reorganization and my position was canceled. Okay, and if you need help with that, talk with us, talk with someone else, and we'll make sure you put it in there correctly. But this is probably something that people don't think about, because you're thinking, well, I no longer have that position, or I didn't get that position. Yes, but you were selected. Or yes, but you did put in some time with them. And through no fault of your own, the position went away. So let people know that. Okay, there are some additional sections that you can include. And depending on what kind of position you're applying to will depend on where these additional skills might go. And as you can see, there are quite a few of them. So if you're applying for a technical job, you might take technical skills and programming skills, and you might put them higher up on your resume. If you are a science major and you have lab skills, the same thing, okay? And if you're applying for a position working in recreation where CPR is good, that will go accordingly. So there's a lot of different information that you can include. And you can always take this information and just include it to begin with, because what you're going to have is a running list. It might be 2 or 3 pages of experiences and skills that you have, and you're going to be able to pull from that later on. As you're working through on your resume, you want to be sure that you are mindful of a lot of good information here. What do you do that's bold? What do you do that's capitalized? And please avoid templates, because when you want to go in and make a change, it really gets messed up. All right. So you definitely want to make sure you don't do that. So this is what a resume might look like, with your objective, your education, relevant experience, and then other experience or work experience, and organizations and honors. And on the right side, as you can see, lined up would be where your dates are. Why? Because the dates are not as important as it is as to what it is that you did. Okay. And as I was mentioning, you might have this continuing list of things that come to mind that you're reminded of, that, well, wait a moment, I did volunteer during the summer for 2 weeks to do such and such. Go ahead and put that down and just keep it going as a long list of the opportunities that you've been involved in, where you've had a chance to use, learn, or hone a skill. It can be as long as you want. It's a master resume. And then when you're applying for a job, that's when you go back and you look at that list of experiences, the list of courses that you might have taken, the ones in which you've developed certain skills or volunteering, and you might then pull from that so that that information resonates with the particular position that you're applying for. As I mentioned from the beginning, references can become important. You do not want to use up your space on your one page to say references available upon request. But a couple of things. You do need to identify 3 or 4, maybe even 5 people that might have been supervisors and or might have been a member of your team, or that somebody that you might have worked with in other different settings. But you want to, first of all, get those down, faculty members, TAs, get their permission, first of all, let them know what you're trying to apply for, and make sure you get that information correct in terms of how they spell their name, et cetera, and how they can be reached. Once you have that and you're applying to a position, not only do you thank your reference for agreeing, but send them a copy of the resume that you're using and a copy of the position that you're applying for, that you need for them to be able to address should they be called. You can bring that list with you if you're at an interview. Bring the list with you, or just be ready in case they say, well, can you send me the names of 3 people that I can follow up with? You don't want to go, oh my God, who can I call? Well, you've thought about it, you've reached out, you have the information, and you're going to look super organized when you're able to say, here's a list of my references, and I've spoken with them, and they are expecting a call as necessary. And then after the position is over, if you got the position or if you didn't get the position, let your references know what that outcome might have been, and keep in touch with them. They might have left their position, and they might have a new phone number or a new email. So make sure that you keep in touch with your top references so that you can use them for that purpose over a course of a couple of years, hopefully. There are a couple of common pitfalls that you can see, and that is, first of all, not using that action verb or using the same verb over and over again. Communicate, organize, organize, organize. Enough organizing. The worst thing in the world, something like typos, okay? Typos are terrible. And same thing with spelling and grammatical errors. Keep in mind, a lot of times if you are going with a spell check or a grammatical check on it, you might have used the word there over there, THERE, and it might have corrected it to THEIR. So even though you have put in that last little thing on checking grammar and checking typos, then go back and make sure that it didn't change some of the words, because that misspelled words really, really pop out on a resume. All right. And you want to be sure that for those experiences that were most important, that you've taken the time to make sure that you are giving them the details that they need. Avoid personal pronouns, I, mine, mine, and not saving it as a PDF prior to emailing. And that's because there are various organizations where your resume might be dropped. You might need to do a cut and paste and paste the resume into the body of the resume, then put the PDF. And that way, if something gets dropped, it's still there and they can still see that. And as I mentioned, read, review, reread. Make sure that there are not any errors in there, because those will really do you in when somebody looks at it and they see that you've used the wrong word. And put your best foot forward, all right? Make sure that you are organized, that you're using keywords through TagCrowd, for instance, from the job description, and make sure that you are addressing the qualifications that they're asking for that particular job. Why are you qualified? You know, you are the one who needs to be sure that you are putting your best foot out there so that the reader is saying, you know, this is the person I want to hire. And the more perfect you can make your resume, the better, because people are spending the time to do this. And it's a very competitive time out there right now. So make sure you take time to go into that. And keep in mind too, if you, once you set up your Careers for Terps account, that's where you might be able to go in and take your resumes and you can upload them and store them in Careers for Terps. So when it's time for you to use it, you don't have to go looking elsewhere for that. All right. Okay. So I do have on here the next steps, which is, of course, to use our website. We have a wealth of information on there. And I think that you'll find it very easy to navigate, and definitely you should use it. You should look at the postings that are in Careers for Terps, which is found off of the website. And the same thing with Indeed.com. Indeed is still probably the #1 source, probably in high competition with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is another place where you need to make sure you're selling yourself. So once you've spent the time on writing this resume and really pulling out your strengths, then you want to work on doing a LinkedIn and making sure that you are having similar information posted over there. A lot of employers are using LinkedIn in order to source for positions that are open. And always follow up with the employers and or the key contacts that you might make via attending a webinar, or if you've gone to an in-person fair. You need to make sure you follow up. If somebody has said, thank you so much for your resume, we'll be in touch. You know, give it a day and then go back and say, just check into, you know, follow up to see where I am falling in, you know, you're looking to fill this particular position.
All right, thank you so much, Linda. And as we switch over and move on to our next section here, which I will be taking over, we just want you to take a moment to kind of reflect on the information you've just been hearing. And just as a quick check-in, you know, take a moment to type into the chat which of the tips you just heard are you most looking forward to incorporating on your resume. So we'll just give you a moment there to do that. Master resume, yeah, absolutely a great thing to do. You can kind of worry a little bit less about page limits there, and then it makes it so that you don't have to go back and rewrite a whole section that maybe you had to admit and want to bring back in later. So TagCrowd tip, yep. New tech tech resources we haven't heard about. Objectives section, yeah, the objective statement really can be a game changer in terms of targeting specific positions, organizations, crowds, etc. And yeah, saving as a PDF, it is a big game changer. It can definitely keep the formatting in the exact way that you want. And then it also, just saves anyone from accidentally deleting something while they're, looking at your resume or something like that. So keep those coming in. I'm going to, pardon me, I do want to pin my video now, spotlight myself. And so the next thing I'll be talking about is the job search. So Linda kind of got me set up there talking a little bit about LinkedIn, Indeed, in terms of places to start your search, but there are some things to do before you even really engage in that job search. And so today we're going to be talking about preparing for your search, right? So what are all those things you need to do to make sure that once you start, you are ready to go? We'll talk about how to identify jobs and actually begin the application process. One big piece of that is leveraging your network, so we'll talk about that as well. And then we'll talk about what to be doing in the meantime, right? While you're waiting for some of those interview offers to roll in, what are things that you can be doing to continue to make yourself a competitive applicant? So we'll jump right into preparing for your search. In an interesting way, this occurred to me while Linda was presenting, but one of the main things you want to do is clarify your interests, your skills, and your values. And that really aligns with that objective statement piece on the resume, right? That knowing exactly what it is that you are looking for in a position, right? What are your most marketable skills? What are your strengths? And, what are your values? What are the things that you really want to accomplish through your work? Particularly if, you're applying to a very values-based company, and maybe you want to highlight that your values are in alignment with theirs. So a great way to kind of start that process of identifying your interests, skills, and values is through the Focus 2 assessment, which is available to you, in your Careers for Terps account as an alum. And so this helps you identify, interests, skills, values, personality, all those different things, and kind of help you identify potential career paths, but also just gives you a comprehensive look at who you are as a person, a worker, an employee, all the different facets of kind of your holistic personality, and can really help you, in reflecting on that, clarify what are those things that you're looking for in a position. A person who is just starting out in the workplace might have very different interests or values or needs in a position than someone who's, a little bit more advanced in their career, has a family, right, is looking for maybe a different type of role, position, or responsibility. Next is to identify companies of interest. And so, some ways to do this can be as simple as Googling top healthcare companies to work for in 2022, right? Glassdoor is a great resource for this. They have lots of company comparisons, reviews from previous employees, from current employees on not just, what their jobs were like, but what was the company culture like? What was it like to work in a specific position at a specific company? And they also have kind of these wider lists, healthcare, business management, right? So across a wide different fields. Another really great resource I'll talk about in a minute in terms of the job search process is called idealist.org. It's very useful for job searching. It's also very useful for just doing a search for organizations that are doing the work you're interested in the area you're in. So when we come to that, I'll touch a little bit more on how to use it for that aspect. It's one of my favorite aspects of that resource. Next is to know your salary needs. So in the UMD TERP guide on page 33 and 34, which we can definitely link, Pamela, I don't know if you want to try finding that link, Pamela or Linda, and putting it into the chat. But if we don't get to it here or later in the Q&A section, you can Google UMD TERP guide and it will 100% show up. So on page 33, 34, we have a budgeting tool, which just helps you walk through, what are those life expenses that you currently have? What are your savings goals, right? What are your financial goals? And kind of where do you need to start? What do you need to kind of hit your basics? And then what would kind of be an ideal? Now, when you're going into an interview, you're not going to come right out the gate and be like, unless you're giving me this, I'm not even interested. That will leave kind of a sour taste in the mouth of an interviewer. But it is useful to know, at a baseline, whether or not something that that employer is able to pay you is something that you will be, able to survive on, given your needs. So understanding your salary needs is a really important part of the preparation process. And of course, perfecting your application documents, which of course includes the resume, but also includes a cover letter. And so definitely using your Careers for Trips profile, our resources on the University Career Center website for cover letter writing and all of the wonderful information on resumes that Linda was just able to provide. So once we have all those documents ready, right, our references are all lined up. They all know that we're going to be contacting them to be our references for our positions we're applying to. A great first step to take is to schedule a job search appointment with Career Center staff. So as alum, if you are an alum of a college that has an embedded program director, like the School of Public Health, such as myself, you have access to your embedded program director for 1 year, essentially out from graduation. But you have access to Career Center advising for, the rest of your life. So you put in your dues and now you get those benefits. So, making an appointment to really go through some specifics to your job search or your field, right? So this is an outline, but having an appointment to talk about, some more specifics is a great place to start. Also remembering to attend career fairs. So we have a career fair at University of Maryland every semester. We are doing in-person and virtual this semester. So I here have the dates for that. Our in-person dates will be Wednesday and Thursday, February 23rd and 24th from 11 to 4, and virtually on Friday, February 25th from 11 to 4 as well. You can find those on the University Career Center event page. You can RSVP or you can just drop on by. So the opportunity to engage directly with employers, is a great chance, but there are also ways to engage, not directly in person. So, one example of these are through job boards. In your Careers for Trips account, you do have the ability, like Linda said, to upload resumes. And we also have a job board feature there where we are featuring employers. And the one cool and unique thing about Careers for Trips versus, some other university-centered kind of job board systems like this is that all of our employers come directly to us. They are looking for, for lack of a better term, our product, right? Our Maryland students. They know and have experience with the high-quality students that leave our institution. And so starting there is a great place to start because all of those employers are coming directly to Maryland. So having a resume uploaded in your profile and having, search alerts set there. Also, as Linda mentioned, Indeed, one of the top job boards that essentially kind of compiles listings from across different sites. So people can search, can include positions directly in Indeed, but it also has a scraping mechanism, so it's finding additional positions out there. So, this is kind of a general search, right? It's not a targeted board, but there are definitely ways to target based on filters, specific keywords in your search. Idealist, so this is the one that I mentioned earlier. So this one is targeted towards the nonprofit and NGO area. So, they have searches for internships. There's also searching for volunteer opportunities on there, and of course for employment. They have a really neat filter, which is one of my favorites, that actually lets you filter by kind of cause or issue area. So if you're looking for a job in public relations, but you're specifically interested in environmental or climate change or environmental issues. You can filter by that, right? So now you're looking at both job function and issue area. So that's one really unique feature that I like a lot. And then the other thing I had said in terms of trying to target organizations and understand what types of companies you might be looking for, in addition to all the job, volunteer, and internship search, they also have just a general organization search where you can, again, filter by specific issue areas and see all of those organizations that are in that nonprofit NGO space and are located, around you and in the space that you're looking to work. So a great way, even if they're not currently offering positions, to look at what organizations are doing the work you're interested in the area you're in, and just keep general knowledge about that career space that you're in. USA Jobs, so if you are looking for federal employment, this is gonna be where you go. Just to note, we did a kind of general, more business kind of private sector focused resume review. The federal resume is a completely different beast. So if you are interested in this, I definitely suggest, booking an appointment with one of us, career advisors, and also checking out our resources. USA Jobs does have a template you can use, but just like Linda said, when you're creating a resume, a template is a tricky way to go because it'll give you, a nice, pretty output, but it becomes really hard to change as you try to adapt it to different things. I don't have it included here, but LinkedIn, I'll talk about on the next slide, is another really great place for job searching. And for all of these, there is a way it's usually in the upper left-hand corner to create a job alert. And it's usually just a toggle, or you'll put in your email address. And what that will do is once you have kind of honed your search really well, you can basically set it so that every time a job is posted to that job board, you will that fits the criteria you're searching, you will receive an email saying, hey, public relation jobs related to climate change were just posted to Indeed in your area. And then you can just go directly to that posting and go ahead and follow the application guidance. So sometimes they will allow you to apply through Indeed, sometimes they want you, or through the job board, sometimes they want you to go directly to the site. So always make sure you're paying attention to that information as well. Is where and how do they want you to apply? In addition, what documents are they asking for? Particularly with federal jobs, you want to pay attention and only submit the exact documents they're asking for. Next is to create a schedule and a tracking document. And so what I mean by this is typically what I use is an Excel sheet or a Google sheet. I'm going to include the name of the position, the name of the organization, the date the application is due, the date I submitted the application, and then usually a column for my last communication with them. So if I sent a follow-up email, if I have communicated that I have an interview, right? When is that interview? If I successfully had the interview and there is, a date that they said they're going to give me a response by. So all that information kind of goes in that last little cell or its last touch point. Another thing especially useful in the job search process and goes back to that idea of kind of clarifying and honing your interests, I like to add one final column that's just a little note section. And so what I usually include in there is going to be information about these positions of interest to me. What are those 3, 4, 5 things that really stood out? That I really drew me to the position? Was it, an opportunity to work with a certain population? Was it a specific project I was going to get to work on? What are those things? And then as you're doing your job search, just go back and read those and see if anything starts to become a pattern, right? Maybe there are some key words that are going to jump out. Maybe you're noticing that specific job titles are kind of starting to become more prevalent. And you can start to include those in your search as key search terms to kind of, again, hone and track your position, or you can even start to include it in your objective statement, right? So just a little bit of kind of a reminder for yourself as you're going through these positions. What is it that is attracting you to them? And are there any patterns that maybe you weren't aware of when you first started the search? So as I mentioned, in a job search, leveraging your networks is a huge, huge, huge benefit and boon. And so a little bit of preparation for that, right? As you're starting, before you start that job search, you want to establish and or clean up social media accounts, right? So at the very minimum, do want to make sure you have a LinkedIn. In that TERP guide that I mentioned earlier, there is kind of a LinkedIn basics on getting started, on kind of some of the information to include. And, one note is, once you have the resume, it is very easy to kind of track over and put a lot of that information into LinkedIn. However, I would say on LinkedIn it's a little bit more social media, a little bit less like official document. So it's kind of that happy medium where it's very professional, but it's also meant to connect you to a wide range of people. So you might want to include your high school, right? You might want to include some of those organizations you were a part of or maybe volunteered at in high school that maybe you haven't, kept up with, but people who were a part of those organizations at that same time might find you through that, right? You could broaden your network that way, or even reconnect with, a former passion that you had, right? Volunteering in high school, for example. You never know what connections you might be able to make. So on your LinkedIn, you can be a little bit less strict about what are, kind of relevant, time-sensitive experiences, and go a little bit broader to really widen your reach for connections there. Also, make sure to clean up and just make private any of your other social media accounts, right? So any of those like wild college days, we might want to either make our accounts as private as possible, or start thinking about removing some of those things from the internet, although I guess it all kind of exists now. But, just making it as private as possible so that if your employers are doing a search, they're going to get, kind of your most professional version of yourself are going to be the first things that come up. So building and maximizing the potential of your social networks. So this is going to come through, primarily that LinkedIn space, but Twitter is another good way as well to engage with organizations, employers, fellow colleagues that you respect. And so one really great way to do this, via LinkedIn is not just to have a LinkedIn where you kind of just add people and have information about yourself, but, really engage on that platform. Is there an article you read lately that really interested you? Share that on LinkedIn, share it as a post, maybe tag a few of your, colleagues or friends that you also think might be interested. Write a little summary or a little bit of your takeaway from the article. Like and repost things that, organizations you're interested in are posting about, right? So really find ways to strategically engage with those companies and in those spaces that you want to, enter, right? And kind of establish your professional presence that way. Next is to leverage your current network. So I think a lot of times when we're starting out in the career world, we think of networking as like kind of this icky thing where you're trying to meet people and I'm just using them for a job and it feels kind of yucky. But the fact is your network is built up of people who have similar interests and similar goals. And it's a lot less of, true networking is not just like, hey, I need a job, give me a job. It's, hey, I read this article that was really interesting lately and I wanted to share it with you. Hey, I, remembered this thing that you said in lecture and, in a current position I'm applying to, I was just reminded me of this thing we learned. So it's just going back and talking to those people in your network that made an impact on you or have similar interests, right? It's also composed of family members, right? So I know especially, upon graduation, post-graduation, while you're in college, a lot of family members will be asking you like, hey, what are you doing next? What are your plans, right? A lot of times we can kind of like roll our eyes and be like, oh, stop asking me. But this is a great opportunity to tell them, right? You never know if your aunt's coworker's daughter works at the exact organization that you're targeting to work for, and you might be able to get an informational interview out of that, right? So all of your contacts, your whole life is your network, and you never know who might be a friend of a friend who might know someone and be able to get you one step closer to your dream job. And of course, follow up, right? So if your aunt's coworker's sister works at Deloitte, right, and that's your dream company, and they say, hey, you know, we should connect, you know, after that family get together or family Zoom call, whatever it might be, you know, make sure that you follow up offline with him and just say, hey, I was really looking forward to the opportunity, you know, to talk and move forward, you know, and you know, to get that meeting. And then after the meeting, you know, make sure that you follow up and say thanks. I really appreciate your time. If they gave you any recommendations for things to read or people to reach out to, you know, contact them about that. Say, hey, I read that article that you mentioned. I thought this piece was very interesting, right? So that's really what networking is following up on similar shared interests and creating genuine connections that kind of can help us navigate that career space for our lives. And finally, what to do in the meantime. So if you are recently graduated, I do believe at 6 months post-graduation, you do have access to LinkedIn Learning still, and this is a great time to use it to advance your skills in, you know, some of those kind of basic areas like maybe Word, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, right? So getting up to speed and really enhancing your skills there. And the same for, you know, for these MOOC courses, so these larger courses that might be free to access, where you can just get, you know, a little bit deeper learning on some topics that maybe you've always been interested in, or that might really benefit your career trajectory. Also looking for, you know, volunteering opportunities. The UN has a great site for volunteer opportunities that are kind of like one-off projects. Same with Catch a Fire and DoSomething.org. And like I said, Idealist is also a great resource for finding volunteer opportunities that align with your personal interests. Also practice interviewing, right? It's never too early to start practicing that interviewing. So Interview Stream is a tool that you will find on our University Career Center website, which will allow you to create an account and then essentially virtually select questions to be prompted with, and it will record you as you are answering those questions so that you can review it later and see, oh, you know, here I said a lot and I need to take a break and pause when I'm feeling those likes and so's come up, or thinking about, you know, can I be more detailed in that answer that I gave? LinkedIn also has an interviewing tool, which is really useful. And like I said, you know, practicing interviewing before you even have the interview will set you up to be more prepared once you get them. And finally, perfecting your virtual communication. There are a lot of different virtual communication methods, and you know, even before you know, COVID-19 and the pandemic hit, they were becoming more and more prevalent in interviewing, right? So in that screening process, and then even you know, in further interviewing processes. So, you know, getting comfortable with being in that online space, and, you know, really perfecting your Netiquette, which is what I will pass on to my colleague Pamela Allen. We'll be talking about. Before we do that, the one, as we kind of prepare for that and I get Pamela set up to take over, we just want you to use this link. I'm going to post it in the chat right now, to really quickly post your most pressing questions about Netiquette and virtual networking. And you can continue to do that as Pamela gives her presentation. And then at the end, we will go through and address some of those questions, and then we will open it up for further Q&A session time. So take a moment just to do that, and then I will switch over to Pamela. Pamela, I think you're on mute.
Hello. And Lauren, if you're still there, you'll access the PowerPoint, right? Okay. Netiquette. Well, first of all, I know everybody, you've been doing a great job. And I just want to say, somebody here, for some of you who may have been away from campus, I just have a friend here, and hopefully you can see him. It's Turpy. Turpy just wanted to say hi to you all, and he wanted to know what is going on. He says, what is this thing now about Netiquette? In the old day, all they used to do was just come up and rub my nose for good luck. And anyways, I'm going to say, Turpy, we have to go and help these alum out here who are job searching. Remember, you're already stuffed, and that's your job. Bye-bye now. I'm telling you, the things that we hope to be doing. Well, I hope you've been getting a lot out of today. Resume, believe me, after many years of working with resume, there's always something new you can be reminded of. Now the job search, so much to keep gaining from year after year. And now we're going to move on to Netiquette, something that always wasn't around. But now you're highly involved. You're in social media. And now what are we doing? Zooming. Okay. Now what is Netiquette? Netiquette is the correct, accepted way, and I'm just going to say even be, and communicate by email, social media, and other platforms, including Zoom. So, what is it? What are some of the basic rules? Now, first of all, some of you may like to communicate through your little group shares. Some of you, I don't know, I'm probably dating myself, even the Facebook. But also, there's other ways you may be interacting with people using social media, emails, and other forms. So, you got to know this, and you got to know how to be. You got to think about the technology, and you got to know the instructions. One, you got to know how to operate it. And then you need to, before you click that resume, click that cover letter, even the email, you got to check it before you're sent. Because too often, that's maybe where you lose out on the opportunity. But you want to establish and maintain a strong and capability and impression virtually. So just to know the short list, know the reader, be professional, consider the technology, and follow the instructions. Know the reader. Okay. Know the reader. Why? Who's reading this communication? Now, Miss LeNoir was talking about different things when she was covering the resume. Like even, do you spell out the number, don't you? You need to know what type of language do you use? And also, it may be, as much as you may know all the different things and that are happening, or the little acronyms, or the symbolisms, the emojis, your readers may not, and you should not be using that in the workplace. So you got to be aware of who's reading it and make sure they understand. So style and tone is very important. Know where it should be directed to the recruiter versus supervisor, otherwise. This is so important. Our employers say this very frequently, that one, the applicants do not read. Let me say that again. applicants do not read because they're not seeing what needs to be included, and they're not seeing where it should be sent to. And sometimes that could be a missed opportunity. So, and I'm saying the recruiters are usually the people gathering you and introducing you. And let's think about you. So for some of you who may be going out there to stores, yes, we're returning to stores. Well, let's think of the big stores. You know, sometimes you go and you're the greeter, or you encounter the greeter. And the greeter, you can ask, where's the purse department? Well, they may know that generally. But let's say you get to the purse department and you want to know something. Hey, you would like a Louis Vuitton, that top shelf, that $500, that $600 purse. But you're the one who's going to be buying it. So you want to find out what is the best purse, best one to get. So you're going to check in with the person who manages that department, who supervises that department. So your question, your communication is going to be different to the person who manages that area versus the recruiter. So, but that's why you want to make sure you know where things are being directed to. Know your contact or referral. Make sure that not only who you're sending it to, but you want to acknowledge who recommended you to send, for you to send this to them. So again, it's important to know the reader because that can help you make the impression for you to continue on in the process and not be X'd out. Technology and social media. Believe me, I'm always constantly having to keep up on this one. Consider the technology. Now, okay, gang, I'm going to talk to you about one of my hidden vices. I used to poo-poo. It's like, what are they talking about? What is this? TikTok. Okay. Until I started going back through, it's everywhere now. YouTube, Facebook, although they call it Reels on there, Instagram there. But the technology, and now TikTok is being used everywhere. However, a company like University of Maryland may now use TikTok, but it's usually due to recruited. I haven't seen any deans going down there and try to do any dances, and please, I really don't want them to do that. But you want to check out, and why I'm bringing this up, if you're going to use a certain technology, again, remember the audience. How you may use that technology with one audience may be different for another. But also, it's also very important to know the social media that's being used or that company uses. So this helps you know, are they going to use that social media to research me, to check me out? But if they also use a technology, a social media that you're not familiar with, if they use a technology that you're going to have to utilize to do the interview with, you got to become familiar with it. Now, the other key thing, and this is going to be important too, like if you're going to even go after a government job. Right now, if the only thing I knew how to use was Zoom, I wouldn't be able to do the interview. If the only thing my computer would allow me to access is Zoom, I wouldn't be able to get that government opportunity. Why? Because Zoom, the government uses a totally different technology, the Microsoft platforms, not the Zoom. So, and if you're not familiar with that, you need to know that. You also need to know that your computer, your technology is ready for this. The other thing is, you want to make sure if you're sending something or if you're utilizing something, you want to make sure your reader's familiar with the technology. Because Miss LeNoir, Miss Lauren, and myself, we hire people. But if we're gonna get something from a student, but we also hire full-time professionals, but they send us something that's complicated and we can't use it, do you think that's gonna go to the top of the pile? No. And the big thing is like, oh my gosh, you're so excited. You could be a tech person, you could be a communication, and your area may use that. But maybe me as a recruiter who's a generalist, I'm not familiar with it. I may not be able to even see your packet, your application. The other thing, during an interview, please be respectful of the people who they may not be at your level with the technology. They may not be at your level social media. Check in with them, just ask. Okay. Professional tone. Now, how I write to my friends and emails to certain people or texting, it's going to be a different tone. If I'm writing to the president, whether it's the United States or the campus, I'm going to be very proper. I'm going to make sure I look up every sentence, if it's grammatically correct. I may even cut and paste it, try it in the Word or in it, make sure everything is correct before I even hit send on that text. Because why? And we do it. I know we do it here in the office. I know in other people who do recruiting. We're checking you out. How did you write? What type of style did you use? Are we going to entrust you to interact with our clients? Are we going to trust you to help work on a certain project? Are we going to either have to invest money in you to retrain you? No, we want you to come already trained. And how are we evaluating it? Not just in the cover letter, but how you're communicating with us. Now, what may be used in education if you're going for a teaching job? And by the way, our teacher education fair is coming up. So sign up. This week we'll be looking for teachers. But guess what? They're going to use a different language if you're going to be recruiting for a position that may be looking for somebody to evaluate data analytics. So the language that you use, the technology language you're going to use, it could be different. And let me say, because I work with information science majors, computer science, GitHub. I see that all the time on the resumes, GitHub. But when I'm looking at government and politics, looking for a job on Capitol Hill, when I'm looking for my communications majors, guess what? I don't see GitHub. And that's okay, because they're using the right language. And I'm bringing this up because some of you may be trying to change out of an industry and go into a new one. Become familiar with the technological language. And I don't want to hear Miss Allen, Miss LeNoir, Miss Lauren. So I got to go take another course. Most likely not. You know why? Because guess what's out there? LinkedIn Learning and other things. YouTube has a thing for everything. So you can get to become familiar with it. You can get to know that. So please do. Accuracy. Again, we emphasize this a lot. Check. I'm just going to say check, whether it's before you send. A lot of you may be getting ready to practice using verbal interaction there. Practice in front of the mirror. Record yourself. But written communication is evaluated. And I'm going to say it again. Written communication is evaluated. And I'm going to bore you again. Written communication is evaluated. Practice. Now, I don't want you to shut down. Automatically, like, I can't do this. Just number one, just practice. Write it out. Reread it. And I was going to say, share it with a friend to get review, or find the different things. Grammarly these days is very popular, and yes, they are making lots of money. But also, don't be afraid to check out organizations or people who just will read and review. But more important, things you could have the correct spelling in everything. But you want to make sure you're writing to Mr. Joseph Smith and don't put there Jack Smith. And if he's the Central Intelligence Information Officer versus the Central Intelligence Administrator, make sure you're correct. So yes, check, and recheck. Is the address correct? Make sure the email, make sure the name, the dots, everything. And guess what's more important? Check to see if your contact information is correct. Check, because you don't want to bounce somewhere where it's not supposed to go. So accuracy, and just remember the 3 words: check, and check again. Instructions. There are stories out there, and I probably was mentioning to this, that recruiters said, we put it in an email. We told them the instructions. And I'm going to confess to you, I'm horrible. I know I got to make myself patient. I'm one of those people that may read the title, look at the center of it, but I know I got to force myself, make sure I read it again, walk away, read it again, to see if I'm following the proper instructions on what to do, how to do it, what they want, how they want it, and then making sure anything that I send, create, and if I'm going to save it and send it, what am I going to do? The 3 letters. Put it in a PDF format. But guess what? I also have to check. Do they accept PDF formats? If not, what do they accept? So again, got to follow the instruction. Because I don't want to be like when I hear some of the employers say, like, we had a candidate, but they forgot some information. We had a candidate, but we never heard from them. But the prospective people will come back, tell, we sent it, why didn't they get it? What didn't they do? They didn't check to see if they used the right email. So follow the instructions. Okay. Okay, now a lot of times people ask, like, how do I reach out to people? Like, like, hey, we hear like you're posting network. How do I do that? I don't, or some of you, and many of you, Miss Allen, Miss Linda, Miss Lauren, I'm afraid to talk to people. I can't do that. So like, that's okay. You can write them. Oh, then the next question, should I say? How should I say it? Again, that's okay. We have some samples, and this is one of them. Remember, we're here at University of Maryland, and we have many resources. So, but you also, whenever you're emailing, and some of you are going to freak out here, even when I say 300 words, but you want to make sure your communication is short, to the point. And that takes more skill at times, is to get it more concrete. But you can see, everybody can see here, that what we're emphasizing as a graduate of University of Maryland, what you want, you want to say in, because immediately say, oh, why? If you're trying to network, the person may see immediately, oh, that's why they're reaching me. I have a relatedness to them, or I'm working there. I want to learn more about your career path, the industry trends. And you know what you always want to never do when you're networking? I would like to learn if you have any jobs for me. Never ask if they have the job for you. You're networking. And guess what people like most when you network? Ask about them. Don't interrogate them, but ask about them. It's like, oh, that person wants to know about me. And then don't forget to do the ask. Ask them to reply and let them know and ask them if it's possible. And thank them. Thank them in advance for their time and consideration. And if you get nervous, will somebody want to talk to me? Remember, how many people get excited like when they hear, what? You went to University of Maryland? Oh my, can you talk to me about how I can get in? But remember what you get more excited about. Oh, can you talk to me what it was like when you went to Maryland? Who would you suggest to talk to? Or what's the best way to make contact to somebody? Yeah. What we have up here on this screen here, just wanted to share that we have the TERP guide that you got a link in already about. And there is a page in there that talks about and suggests ways to correspond. And when we shared it, and it's around page 21, that's where it's located at. So just wanted to make sure that you don't have to worry about that. So you can see here, hiring professionals, they want to connect with you. They want to connect with you, but they want to make sure it's worth their time. They want to interact with you, but they want to make sure that you're the right person to be connecting with, and they're going to be evaluating you before that time and different things. So do it right. Now, some of you may also have some other questions about how to, like when you're doing the Zoom or how to be in the Zoom. Well, that to be in the how to handle yourself part 2 another time. But I just wanted to say, the key thing is make sure even when you're online virtually, think about you're always in person. And if you're doing anything around a job, even going to call or interacting on Zoom, and it's a possible candidate, and you're used to always having just your screen not showing yourself, be prepared that somebody may want to interact with you. Most people want to see you and your face. Most people want to see you. So the moment you start, you say we'll do something virtually, FaceTime, make sure you're looking appropriate. Okay. Well, as you can see, we are now at the end. And so we're going to take this time and remember what the first thing that we covered, resumes. But also think about it. It's a document, and that resume can be your base. It can help you with your LinkedIn profile. It can help you turn your electronic document. If you're going out, you're hearing, or you see whether you use Careers for Terps, remember that's our base one here, or Indeed or Handshake, any of those, create that base resume. Then those powerful job searching pointers that Miss Lauren was talking about, make sure you keep those in mind. And then don't mess it up by not doing proper Netiquette. So, going to leave you with that. Thank you for keeping, and we hope we kept your view and you got something out of this today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to turn it back over to Lauren for right now.
Thank you, Pamela. Yes, and so I did just want to make sure that we took a couple minutes to go over, so we did get some questions in specifically around networking. So we have a few minutes left here. And so I think Pamela, Linda, still looks like Linda is still there, and I will go through a few of these. If there are other questions you have, please put them in the chat. We will get to as many as possible. I'm going to start here and we'll kind of work through. So I'll take us first up. So how should you reach out to someone whom you haven't been able to talk to for a few years due to COVID? So I think this will depend on the nature of the relationship. And, let's say, are you already connected via LinkedIn? That could be a good way. If it's, let's say, a former professor, and you want to reach out to them, always kind of reminding the person how they know you is a good place, especially if it was maybe not as robust of a relationship to start with. And I would say it's always good to reach out with something specific to talk about, a specific ask, a specific kind of agenda. And so, restarting that conversation with a in mind, of a place that you want to go. And remembering, like we've been saying, networking is not necessarily, right? I mean, jobs can come from it, but it's not necessarily always the immediate intention be, hey, I'm now looking for a job. What do you got to offer me? But rather, hey, remember me? We have shared interests. And really starting to kind of build that more robust relationship that could potentially lead to opportunities or recommendations later down the line. Pamela, Linda, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I'm going to say, no, I'm just looking at some of these other things here.
I do have something else to add in terms of reaching out to people, and I'm going to put this into the chat, which is to both look at the alumni.umd.edu website, where you can identify by the special interest groups. Might be cities, it might be a state, but there are alumni throughout the world. But there are places that you can reach out to alumni through the Alumni Association and those groups and how they're meeting up. And the other one is the Terrapins Connect.umd.edu. And one of the great things about Terrapins Connect is that they also provide you with some guidelines and some like pre-filled in questions that you might use to reach out to somebody, and then you can personalize it yourself. Terrapins Connect has over 3,000 alumni in there, and those are individuals who have said, yes, I want to talk with students and other alum. And so unlike LinkedIn, where you hope that they'll talk to you, in Terrapins Connect, you kind of know that they'll talk to you. So do look at both of those and use those resources. Also within Terrapins Connect, we work with the association for them to be able to set up a widget to basically skim off those jobs for graduates and those with more seasoned positions. So they actually take the jobs that we have in Careers for Terps and also post them specifically over on the alumni side. So get to know that alumni.umd.edu website and definitely sign up for Terrapins Connect.
Yeah, and that definitely goes towards a couple of the questions we have here. I think, in the absence of networking, best way to find connections, definitely Terrapins Connect, LinkedIn. I would also say something that can be really engaging too is finding, an organization, like an industry organization or association, and kind of getting involved, joining that, getting involved in some of their kind of posts and some of their events that they might have. And, through that way, really finding people who are working in the same space as you. And a lot of those associations will also have job boards too. So kind of a multi-pronged benefit there.
Yeah. And I just want to say to people, remember, many people who you're going to be approaching, they've been in your shoes or they know somebody else. The COVID, that's a commonality. And some of you it can be a talking point. And yeah, it's practice, comfortability, but you'll be surprised. People do want to engage you and even, to help you. And people, the majority of human beings like to help somebody else, or at least refer you to something. So don't be afraid to network. Don't be afraid to ask. Come back. Come to our events. All of these events, if you go to the careers.umd.edu and Careers for Terps, these events, they're open up to alumni. So we are here for you, and we look forward to see you, whether it's through virtual, Netiquette, or in person. So that's one of the big things. And about, somebody talked about response. One of the key things saying like, try 1, 2, space it out 3 times. Usually if a person hasn't responded in 3 times, that either maybe they're not there, they don't know anything, or they just are just overbooked. So, but don't be deterred just by trying once. It's okay to follow up.
Yes, absolutely. For the emails, if someone doesn't immediately follow up, they could have seen it and just it got lost in the emails. I know I've got 100 emails waiting in my inbox right now that I just haven't been able to get to. And it's not unusual to to send a follow-up ping. Definitely 1. Maybe 2, but if you've emailed 3 times and aren't getting much traction, I would say, maybe let it rest for, for a little while, and they'll come back to it if they can. In the question to the rejection email, a great way to respond is to still thank them, and to ask them, to confirm that, like, I'm really interested in a position in this industry or a role like this. Is there, anything about my application that I could improve? Anything about my interview that I could improve that would have made me a more competitive applicant, right? So it's a great way to still say thank you and acknowledge the fact that they reached out directly to you, and a great way to get some input that could help you be a better applicant the next time around.
Well, I think it's getting that time, everybody.
It is, and I will just say one of the last questions, if anyone's still here, one of those last questions, how to not get overwhelmed. One thing that I find really useful is to build it out kind of like it is a part of your schedule. So, block time to do that job search. And, really just treat it like it's a job, like it's, a job that you're doing, a task that you're doing. And another thing that I like to think about too is think about what your skills are. Are you a person who's, better online, or are you a person who's better talking, in person? And, maybe leverage and really focus on those skills that you have in the job search and applying those to the job search. And, do your best in those areas, and then be confident that, you're working all your angles there, and that the other pieces will kind of fall into place. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop our share. I think we got to most of the questions that came in via Padlet. I didn't see any in the chat, but if you are, know if employers hire alumni currently living outside the U.S. and need a visa. So there are some employers who will sponsor visas, but that I would definitely book an appointment with us to talk about that a little bit more in depth, especially because we're a little bit out of time here, but I would definitely suggest booking an appointment with us.
And let me also say that if you use the Careers for Terps resource Going Global,
Yes,
there is a way that you can search on there. And even within C4T, within Careers for Terps, you can also search based on whether or not you have to be a citizen or whatever the credential might be. And lastly, if you are still receiving information from ISSS, the International Students and Scholar Services, they will have somebody, an attorney, coming in, and he always addresses this. And I want to say they're bringing Mark in sometime in, I think it's sometime in late February, March. But if you go to ISSS.umd.edu, you can see their website. But that attorney does come in and does give you the latest on what can and can't be done. But it's a great question.
Yeah.
The other,
And stay
part
connected.
is this: if you find that if you have been out and you've gotten you're a permanent resident now, we cannot change that in our data in Careers for Terps. You have to change it with the registrar. They're going to ask for some specific information. Once they change it there, then we can change it in our system.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so
everybody.
much to, I was going to say thank you so much to everyone for joining. Really appreciate you coming today. Goodbye. Thank you to Linda, and thank you to Pamela for your wonderful insights and being great collaborators. Have a great evening.
And this recording will
Yeah, I'll stop the recording now.
Thank you.